Voice of the people.
Hey everybody, Z Garcia here. Welcome back to my top 100 games of all time. I am so excited to be doing this list again. Last time I did this was in 2014, so I've redone it. I did not look at the old list until I was finished with this one, and then I went back, dug out those numbers, threw them on the list here just to be able to compare what's new, what I mentioned last time, if it's moved around on the list, all that good stuff. So, today we are tackling 60 through 51. The bottom half of my top 100 games of all time gets wrapped up right here, right now. And I gotta say, looking at this list, there's a lot of styles of games on this, on these 10. But man, are most of these, no really, all of these games are gorgeous looking games. I'm a sucker for games that look good. There's no denying that. If a game is attractive, that's like a third of the way there. So nothing for me. That's one of the problems. So nothing stings like a pretty game that doesn't work for me. You know, that I consider a bad game, because it's just, I mean, if I'm not expecting it, or it's, you know, just an ordinary looking game, if it doesn't jump off the table, it stings less than if it's gorgeous. And I feel like, man, all this gorgeous artwork got wasted on this game. So thankfully that is not the case. We are going to be kicking it off right away with my number 60. This was my 31 last time I did this, Biblios. And Biblios is still far and away one of my favorite fillers, or filler plus, I guess, if you would, of all time. It's just so good. It's so clever, so original. I love it best with 3 players. And the main concept here is that every time the game's sort of 2 phases, and by the way, these 2 phases blow For Sale out of the water, I think. I like For Sale, don't get me wrong. Also, For Sale is much shorter. But this whole first half of the game, second half of the game, what that For Sale does, I think Biblios does that whole thing better. First half, on your turn, you draw a card, and then that card either you keep in your hand, you put on the table for other people to take, or you stick it in this pile that is going to be auctioned off in the second half. And then you do that as many times as there are players. So 3 players, I take a look at a card, I'll throw it on the table. Second one, I draw, I am going to auction this later. Now, I've already passed on 2 cards. The rest that's coming up might be garbage. I might be waiting to take one, and it's worse than what I just gave up. So I'll draw another one, and now here's a choice. Do I keep it? It's pretty good, but I'm going to get to look at one more card. Those choices are so good. And then once that's all done, then you shuffle up this set of side cards that everybody's been throwing stuff in there. You flip them over one at a time, and they get auctioned. You know, from the cards in your hand. You've been giving yourself money, or people have been drafting money. Oh, so good. I really like it. It's like I said, one of my favorite filler games, and it's got a great look to it. The reprint that came out after the original from the Finn printing of it is just a wonderful looking game. So, my 59 is Blue Moon City, and this was 56 last time, so it's holding right there, holding steady. And Blue Moon City is a game that baffles me why this is not in print. Fantasy Flight printed this. This was years ago, and I always thought it was a great game, liked it right away. It was one of the games that was nominated for the Game of the Year in Germany, and I actually thought it should have been the one that won that year. And So high profile, right? Not like a game that came in and I'm touting it, but no one's heard of it. And it's out of print, and you can't find it, and I don't know why. The game is so good. It's one of the few games that does this whole, we're going to work together on building something, but really I just want to walk in there and snipe you and take as many points as you're getting, but I did like a third of the work. And oh, it's so interesting. The buildings on the board, as you finish them up, they get flipped over, and then they give you a neighborhood bonus. So if you complete a building next to that building, you get a bonus from the one that's finished. And on your turn, you move and utilize special actions on cards, and the cards have either special actions or you use the number towards constructing the building. It uses all the artwork from Blue Moon that came before it, which is stunning artwork, and the cards have special powers, but they're not as complicated or as varied, I should say, as the ones in Blue Moon. It's a completely different animal. Oh, so great. I really like it. One of my favorite Euro-style games, and one that I think is going to be up there for a long time, because there's nothing quite like it, you know? Excuse me. So that's my 59, Blue Moon City. My number 58 is a brand new game to the list, which is surprising because I already own a sequel to it as well. And this is Beastie Bar. And Beastie Bar New Beasts in Town is the follow-up. I like the first one better, which is the one on the list here. But if you like the game, get both. You can mix and match. You just have, it's almost like an expansion, really, you know, the second one. It can play by itself, but I treat it as an expansion. Beastie Bar, again, amazing filler for me. I've had tons of success with this one. I've taught it to non-gamers. I have taught it to folks that I thought wouldn't like it because it would be too silly, and they've liked it. It blows away, for me, guillotine. Guillotine is the concept is you play some cards, and then depending on what's at the front of the row or the back of the row, you score points. That's the idea. This game takes that and makes it much more tactically rich, I think, and gives you this gorgeous animal artwork. They're like anthropomorphic little animals trying to get into a bar, and you want your guys getting in, you know. And so you'll mess with the other people, push them to the bag, jump over them, send them back to players' hands, kick them out of the line, all this kind of stuff. The animals and their powers are nicely thematic and nicely tied up. I really like it. So my 58, Beastie Bar, a new favorite filler for me. My 57 is not a filler. It's anything but a filler, but it's a very different game than the kinds of games that tend to end up on my top whatever lists. And this is Blood Rage. Now, Blood Rage is a new darling. I'll give you that. If I did this list again in 2 years, I don't know where it would be, because it is newish, you know. But so far, it's had a lot of staying power for me. I've played it, and every time I come back to it, I go, yeah, this is a spectacular game. This is an amazing design. This game has a gripping story to it. This game, the ebb and flow is captivating. When you get those new cards you draft, you use them to do whatever you're doing. You kick people out, you fight, go to Valhalla, you do this, you do that. Once that's done, and you start to get to that point, or I start to get to that point where I'm like, yeah, that was pretty good, okay, and then we do another draft, and you go, look at these new cards! They're so much better than the old cards! And so, it's that like, gotcha, that hook again, you know what I mean? The ramping up of power, the clashing, the different concepts in the game in which you can make points from saying, yeah, come on, hit me. Boom, gotcha, points. Because when you take my figure out, I get points. It's like, it messes with your head, you know, because you expect these kinds of games to be all about, I must crush you, you know, but in this game, that's not necessarily true. The game is balanced enough to reward you for going a different way, for being sneaky, you know, and it just works extremely well. So Blood Rage is my 57. This is the kind of game that I think is going to be on a lot of people's top 100 lists or top 10 lists or whatever. Certainly for that year, if not for, you know, all time. And I have to agree with them. I think it's a brilliant game, you know. Blood Rage is my 57. My 56 was my 42 last time I did the list, and this is Relic Runners. Another game that I'm not seeing a lot of people give love to. Not sure why. But Relic Runners is a stunning looking, clever, well-produced, captivating game. It's got a cool theme. It's got interesting choices. It's from a designer that I'm definitely keeping my eye on. His name escapes me right now, but he is part of the design team for Elysium. And I mean, he knows what he's doing, and I'm very excited to see what else he's got coming up in the future. But man, this game knocks it out of the park. Days of Wonder always does a stunning production, and on this game, they outdid themselves. I think it just really works for me, and I think it's a shame that I don't see more people playing this one. I'm not sure why. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, if you've never seen it or haven't heard about it, look into it at least. I think it's wonderful. All right, so where am I here? Relic Runners, that was my 56. My 55 was my 78 last time. It's moved up a little bit for me, so that's interesting. And this is Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark, I do have one complaint, and I'm going to say that first because, well, it's a top 100 list. I don't normally have complaints. My complaint with Lewis and Clark is that it does not scale well. I like it with 2, best. I will play with 3. That's it. I don't want to play with more than that because the time is one of those games that how much time you put in it is per player. And those games scare the bejesus out of me because I don't want to play a game that says, oh yeah, 30 minutes per player. Come on, everybody, gather around. Let's throw down a 5-player game of this. No. And this game is like that. The idea of a worker placement game mixed with a deck building hand management thing is not something that I would have rightly said, oh yeah, those two things go together. Let's do that. But it works. And you either, on your turn, play characters from your hand and then use another card to power that one up. And you got to be careful, really, with the way you manage your hand. You don't want to run out of steam and have to make camp and rest when you're holding a bunch of stuff. Because you go back. You start, really dropping behind. It's kind of like a race across the country, But you can, instead of doing all that, just place a figure on the map and take some action out there. And there's resource management. And there's acquiring new characters for your journey. And there's all these things that come together that I was worried would be gears grinding against each other, but the whole thing just works. And it's gorgeous. As I said at the beginning, all of these games are very pretty, but this is Vincent Dutrait pretty. That's saying something. So, Lewis and Clark, my 55, very, very happy with this one. My 54 was my 32 last time. Dropped a little bit for me. Again, I think because there are so many 2-player games. And this is Arena Roma 2. Again, basically a re-implementation, retweaking of Roma, which is a Stefan Feld game for 2 players. But Arena, which is a follow-up, I think really opened up the original design. The original design was a little, I guess, one-dimensional would be one way to put it. There were a couple of cards that this is what you want. This is how you make points. You got to get some of those and then work those buildings and get some points. And in Arena, that was no longer true. The game was sort of retweaked to allow for different ways to go at it, different ways to win. And the game is quite simply, you put cards out in front of you and you roll dice and assign those dice to the cards and trigger them. Or you make money, or you draw more cards with those dice. And you do that back and forth until someone crushes the other person, or you wipe out all the victory points. It's a neat design. It's not something that I would say, wow, how original necessarily, but it's clever and it's interesting and it's zippy. It just zips along. It moves right along. I've liked this game for a long time. I clearly remember a memory of sitting down at a coffee shop with a friend playing Roma. For hours. It's playing and then, okay, haha, and set up again and playing. And it lets you do that. Because there is that interesting, engaging variety to the cards, to the way things go and dice roll and you don't quite get what you want. You have to adapt. The whole thing is very wonderful. I think this one is going to be sticking around on my top 100 list for a long time. It's just, I don't know, it just works for me. It's got all that good stuff I like. So that's Arena Roma 2. My 53 is a brand new game to the list. Actually, 53, 51, 52, and 51 are all brand new games to the list. And my 53 is Viceroy. Viceroy came out of nowhere to surprise me. It's originally it's a Russian design. Was originally a Russian printing. Then it was reprinted by Mayday, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember the first time I played this game, I was really impressed by how streamlined the whole thing was, because it did not look streamlined. You look at the whole game and you go, man, there's a lot of symbols and there's a lot of cards and characters and what's happening. But the whole thing has this it's gamey, but it works. You're building this pyramid and it does not really mean anything in the game. It's a Euro concept of, well, why are we building a pyramid? Because that's the clever mechanism that this person came up with. Oh, okay. But it is clever, and it does work, and you're building this pyramid of characters, and depending on how high up the character is, depends on what power triggers on them. So the higher up, the better the power, but because you're building a pyramid, the card must be supported by 2 cards underneath it, so getting something much higher up is much more difficult. You are also doing this sort of color matching game, mini game in it, where if you can make a full circle of the same color, you get a little boost there. The whole thing is a very Euro-style card game, but man, I really like it. And it is the reprint that was put out here in the US is also very wonderfully done. And I just like it a lot. I've gotten a lot of plays out of it, and very happy to own it. Very happy that it's available now in a wider distribution. So look into it if you haven't heard of it. All right, my 52 is Pelican Cove, but the version I have is Uluru. Uluru is in the same line of games as Dimension, as Zalapa, which is over here somewhere, right there. And so these games from this designer are all puzzle-style games. That's what they always are. It's like this concept of, in real time, I'm going to give you these limitations. I'm going to give you these parameters. And then you're going to quickly try to resolve this puzzle and see if you do better than everybody else. Now, it's a game that's definitely not for everyone. It's not for every occasion. I understand all of those things. But it is so different from most games that it blows my mind. And I couldn't ever imagine having to come up with how to design this thing. It is so smart. I mean, and in this one, Uluru, it's little birds, like pelicans. And so the limitations, you have a little board with like spots where the pelicans will sit in a circle. And the limitations say things like, have the yellow pelican sit across from the black pelican. The blue pelican must not be next to the green pelican. Things like that. And then you go, okay, oh no, wait, this guy can't go here. Okay, can we go? Yes, okay, and now I'm going to move this one in the corner, because he has to be near a corner, and all of this stuff. And it is so good. I like Dimension a lot. And yeah, this choice for me kind of encapsulates that whole series, but Uluru is the best. It's got the best components, it's got the best puzzly feel to it. It is the best. It's a little bit harder to find, and in the US it might be easier to find the Pelican Cove printing, but it is so good. It's just so unbelievably good. I'm very happy to own it. I own the Uluru printing, and I love it. It fits with the other ones on the shelf. It's mostly why I like that printing better. Alright, and then lastly, my 51, also a brand new game, Viticulture. And now this one surprised even me. I was not expecting to like this game when I first played it, because it's a big Euro game. And I don't tend to like very fiddly, maybe fiddly's not the right word, but games that do a lot of, wherein you do a lot of micromanagement, you know what I mean? But this game, you get into the nitty gritty of it, it's like, oh, I have to age the grapes, and I have to, or the mixture, whatever, I have to do this, I have to buy the plot, I have to plant the plot of land, I have to, oh wow, there's a lot going on, but it is so captivating, and the whole thing really brings you into its little world and keeps you there. And it's a race for points also. So if you start feeling like you're falling behind, it's like, oh boy, what am I going to do? I got to step up my game. Maybe I need to, I'll play this character and see if I can jump back in. Or, I'm going to try to build this other building and see if I can ramp up my aging or whatever. The whole thing is a worker placement game that works so well, and it was so surprising to me. And every time I've played it since, it impresses me. Because it's so not the kind of thing I expected to like. But I really do. The expansion that came out for it, Tuscany, I think was wonderful. I like quite a bit of it. Not everything in there because it's a huge expansion, but I like quite a bit of it. They are now releasing the game in what they're calling the Essential Edition, I want to say. There's a few modules in there from Tuscany, and that's probably good. If you've never heard of it, you can go with that one. But I'm very glad I got the original printing and Tuscany, because I love mixing and matching modules. It's like one of my favorite pleasures to take in board games. What happens if I add this thing and take this one out? Or what happens if I do both of these at the same time? Love that stuff. And so Viticulture for me just sings. Wonderful game. So that's my 51, and that is it for the top half of my top 100 games of all time. I cannot wait to get cracking on the top 50 games of all time. Very excited to talk to you guys about them. So thank you for tuning in, and come on back for the rest of the list. I'll see you.
Z can be a little polemic. He stings like the 8th outbreaking pandemic. Z's got flavor in his top 100 games.
Lice shower.
Z Garcia, voice of the people. Z Garcia, voice of the people.